listening live to Rightside Radio with Phil Williams. It's hard to go wrong when you're on the right side. Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right.
Alabama's syndicated news talk leader, Rightside Radio. Phil Williams here live in the Rightside studios. Man, we got the local, the state, the national, covering down on all the issues. And like the dude just said, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Well, it is Monday, a beautiful spring Monday, by the way. Beautiful all day long, and Boomer's on the board. Hey, bud.
Hey, all kinds of beautiful outside.
It's like layers of beautiful out there right now.
It is. I love it.
Well, I'll tell you what, you got to spend some time, beautiful weather on the range over the weekend,
I
did you?
did.
Like, how many rounds did you burn?
I went through about 500.
Wait, all with one weapon or multiple?
One weapon, about 100 with another. Nice. So it was a good weekend.
It's 400 out of a long gun then? Out of your AR?
400
Sweet.
Out of the AR and the 100 out of pistol.
I mean, you couldn't have asked for a better day.
It was gorgeous.
Oh.
It was fun too.
All right. I am with bullet envy right now.
Oh.
All right. Hey, listen, we got a great show laid on for you. 3 o'clock today, Terry Lathan, the former chair of the Alabama Republican Party, she's been on before. She has taken up the efforts for school choice as her mission in life right now. So she gave us an intro a few weeks back. We're going to catch up with her today, find out where things are, what she knows, how's it moving, is she seeing resistance in the Alabama House and Senate. But right now, 3 o'clock today, Terry Lathan, former chair of the Alabama Republican Party, you're going to want to hear what she has to say. And then there's a triple dipper bar none. Hit it, bud.
The Triple Dipper. 3 stories you've got to know.
That's right, the Triple Dipper, 3 stories, 3 themes, if you will, that you have got to know before we get into today's show. So here's the deal. Number 1, I'm calling it Alabama education, nowhere to go but up. It's true. When you're at the very bottom, ain't nowhere to go but up. It's hard to get lower than the bottom, and that's where we sit. There's been some new developments and issues related to Alabama education, not the least of which is a senior education official. Was she terminated or did she put in her resignation? Either way, she's gone. And we'll talk about why. So, yeah, Alabama education, nowhere to go but up. Number 2, our U.S. military. Still the greatest military in the face of the earth, but dang, things are different than what they've been in the past. We are at a difficult spot right now, so we're going to talk about it. Fit to fight, that's number 2 on the Triple Dipper. And then number 3, failing up. I mean, wow. How do you keep screwing up so badly and getting new and better positions? Well, you must work for the Biden administration. So there's that. We're going to talk about it. Failing up, and the names that are going to go down that list are basically all the ones that make decisions that you and I have to live with. Failing up, number 3 on the Triple Dipper. All right, let me jump over here my comments. So this past weekend, I finished reading a book, and I highly recommend it, by the way. It was technically a work of fiction, a novel, but it was a historical novel, very well researched, based on real events. The book was titled Escape from Auschwitz, and it details the monstrous deprivations and the tragedies that Jews and gypsies and others experienced at the hands of the Nazis during World War II. I mean, it's really hard to fathom the depths to which man's inhumanity to man can go. But this novel did a pretty good job portraying it. But it also dealt with the amazing men and women who were among the very few who formed an actual underground resistance in the worst of the death camps at Auschwitz. At a time when Hitler's SS made murder an efficiency-based assembly line affair, when torture and abuse were considered sport, with the smell of death permeating everything and even the gold fillings in the teeth of the dead being harvested, there were still people, starving and exhausted, who resisted and planned and plotted and even escaped. In real life, all the escapes were audacious, some more than others, like the dudes who stole German uniforms and then stole the Auschwitz camp commander's personal car and drove out the main gate. The stories are amazing. So too were the highs and the lows and the epic moments, like when U.S. bombers flew over and bombed a nearby Nazi factory and how elated the prisoners were. Stories of real people being persecuted for no other reason except for the fact that hate and evil were allowed to rule the day. Well, I love stories of overcomers like that, people who resist evil. It reminds me of a documentary that Charlene and I stumbled across not long ago. It was really more of a personal story, but it had so much history and background in it that, yeah, I guess it would be a documentary. It was called Above and Beyond, and it recounted the true story of one American man's path that led to incredible actions during World War II. The story was told by the man's daughter. In the movie/documentary Above and Beyond, it told the story of a man named Bruce Sundlun, an incredible story of just an average guy, a Jewish American growing up in pre-World War II and just prior to World War II in the late 30s, at a time when the world could sense that war was on the horizon. This guy, Bruce Sundlun, decided that just in case the U.S. went to war, he wanted to be a pilot. So while he was in college, he enrolled in a program that was initiated at the direction of President Roosevelt. The program was designed to qualify civilian pilots that could be in a reserve corps. And he did so. And when the Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor, followed shortly after that by a declaration of war by Nazi Germany, Bruce Sundlun enlisted in the Army Air Corps. Well, because he had a college degree and was already a qualified pilot, he was made an officer and became the commander at 23 years old, the commander of a B-17 Flying Fortress with a crew of 10 men. They named their plane the Damn Yankee, and the crew flew a dozen highly dangerous combat missions, but on number 13, the Damn Yankee was shot down over Belgium. Of the 10-man crew, 5 died on the mission being strafed by enemy planes, 4 were captured on the ground, and Bruce Sundlun was the only man who got away. As an American and as a Jew, he was highly sought after. He remained on the run for 6 months and eventually became part of the French resistance, fighting a guerrilla war against the Germans. And later, his skills got him recruited by the OSS. The OSS was the predecessor to the CIA, to work as a paramilitary pilot. He eventually came out from behind enemy lines, and before the war was over, he was a bomber pilot again in the Pacific Theater. Incredible story. He was awarded the Distinguished Flying Cross, the Purple Heart, and other awards. And after the war, he became a successful businessman, later became the governor of Rhode Island. Bruce Sundlun, what a life. But there's another guy, one I knew personally, sort of a second grandfather to Charlene and I in the early years of our marriage. His name was Rayford P. Keitel. Everyone called him Ray. And I knew him in the last decade of his life. He was a wonderful man. He had a wonderful old-school Southern accent, and he always had an old corncob pipe in his mouth, which he would take out and wave around when he talked. I asked him one day, do you ever smoke that thing? He says, Phil, I haven't smoked this in years. I suppose it's really just my pacifier. Someone at church one day told me I should ask Ray about his work during the Second World War, and I did. And he was humble, only told me a little. I had to look up the rest. You see, like Bruce Sundlun, Ray already had his college degree when the war broke out, 1936 graduate of Georgia Tech as a chemical engineer. And he already had a career brewing with what was then known as the Reynolds Metal Company. Ray was with Reynolds during the early years that saw Reynolds develop extraordinary processes for manufacturing sheet aluminum. Just prior to the war, the founder of the company went to Germany and was shocked by the level of manufacturing for aluminum that was going on there, and realized then and told the War Department he believed Nazi Germany was on a war footing. So Reynolds, with Ray as one of their engineers, they ramped up their processing. They bought their own mine. They actually built one of the most advanced smelters right here in Sheffield, Alabama. But the war began, and Ray volunteered for military service. To his surprise, the War Department sent him home and declared him essential to the war effort. You see, aircraft were needed, and Reynolds Metals was to become one of the top producers of aluminum sheeting for the construction of those fighters and bombers. Over 3 billion tons of aluminum over the course of the war built almost 300,000 fighting aircraft. My friend Ray told me this almost with regret. He had friends that went to war, and he did not. It seemed to haunt him a bit. Well, I found out not too long ago that my friend Ray had gone on to be vice president of Reynolds, the same company that produced things like Reynolds Wrap aluminum foil and all that, and provided exponential tons of aluminum to build the same planes that Bruce Sundlun flew in, and that the Jews in Auschwitz watched bomb factories nearby. I have no idea whether my friend Ray Keitel helped provide the aluminum that built Bruce Sundlun's Damn Yankee or the bombers that flew over Auschwitz and brought encouragement to men who were just surviving and resisting. It would not surprise me, though. But it's interesting to think that these men, with distinctly different paths, one of which resulted in medals and a career in politics, the other which may have had no medals, but by God, he contributed heavily to the fight, and then the ones who were just surviving and resisting against all odds. These men all had what seemed like divergent paths that actually may have intersected in a major way, and all of them were truly essential to the war effort. So here's the deal, y'all. You find your path. If it's your calling, then don't compare. Don't try to measure it against others. Psalm 139:3 says, God weeds out the good and the bad for the path of our journeys and provides rest along the way. That's my paraphrase there. Find your path. Find your path and don't look back. And resist any effort of the enemy to stand in the way. There are those who have gone before you that have already overcome worse. And there are those who don't think that they contributed, but they surely did. And there are those who won recognition, and deservedly so. And every one of them, no matter what their part, they played a part in defeating the enemy. And that's a wrap for the Right Side Way. Yeah, I highly recommend that book, Escape from Auschwitz. Historical fiction, but fact nonetheless. Built a few characters and dialogues in order to help the storylines, but I went and double-checked online, and yes, the escapes and the underground and the resistance in Auschwitz, it was real. And then Bruce Sunland, man, look up that film. I'm telling you, it's called Above and Beyond. It's worth it. And then there's my friend Rayford P. Keitel with his corncob pipe, who probably helped put all that together in a way that won the war. All right, you guys, Phil Williams, Right Side Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Right Side Radio, solid conservative and just plain right. Saving the world one soundbite at a time. We are off and running, and so is the text lines. I kept thinking, well, not many people texted on that one, and then I realized, maybe refresh the screen.
Refresh.
And now we're like, so I've been trying to answer some texts during the break and all that, but quite a few folks jumped in. Scott from Huntsville has already determined that we're heading off into socialism and dishonesty by daring to talk about school choice. Whatever. And then Brian from Huntsville has texted in about the plane I talked about, the damn Yankee. He says too many people don't know that overseas any American was called a Yankee. The Yanks, yeah, well, yeah. But Allie from Athens enjoyed it. Thank you, Allie. Appreciate it. Amazing stories. And he always says, and Ray helped to launch the Lister Hill Credit Union way ahead of. I did not know this. That's very cool. Wow, Allie. Later on, you got to tell me that story. Anyway, and we got some new textures on the line. Who were the new textures? We had Jane from Gadsden. Who else is new, Boom? Alan from Arab.
And there was one more, Mike from Owens Crossroads.
And Mike from Owens Crossroads, yeah. Good deal. Awesome. Like, is there a limit to the number we can have in our system?
Nope.
It just keeps on going?
It just keeps going. We can have forever.
It's a good thing because it keeps on growing. I know that.
Because of that, yes.
I was talking about my older friend Rayford P. Cottle a while ago.
Oh, yeah.
So this is like a total rabbit chase here, but I got to tell a Ray story.
Oh, please do. He seems so interesting.
He was awesome. He was a big old fella, had a big old belly and a corncob pipe, and he'd talk to you like this, son. I say to you, here's the way I feel about it while he's waving that corncob pipe around. Anyway, So I was in Georgia for a period of time working in full-time ministry, and the church we were at where I met him, and they asked, Charlene and I had just moved from Mobile to this place in Georgia, and the church asked, hey, since you're from Mobile, like you just moved here, you probably know about Bellingrath Gardens. And is it Bellingrath? Hang on a second, I got my gardens correct. Yeah, I think it's Bellingrath Gardens in Mobile. And the seniors are going down there. Would you mind maybe being their escort and taking them back because you know the way around Mobile? And I was like, okay. So suddenly I had I was like the adopted grandson for the next 5 days for 70 seniors in our church, right? Just me. So we go down, and Ray is like the guy in charge. And so we go down there, and some of the ladies in the group decided they just had to see a play at the old, what's it called? The old number 1 Firehouse Theater. And I said, I've lived down here for like 8 years, and I've never heard of this place. And they said, oh, no, it's downtown. We understand it's very good. And they're doing a play tonight. We thought it might be fun to go watch it. And I was like, okay. This is before internet, so what am I going to do? So we got this. Now, if you've been to old downtown Mobile, it's kind of like New Orleans, narrow streets,
Okay, yeah.
All right, and we're getting the bus barely through these little streets, and sure enough, it's the old number 1 fire station, and there's a theater group that does plays there, right? So.
Well, there you go. So they figured it out?
Well, we get there, though.
Oh, no.
We get there. I kid you not. We go. So Ray comes with. I said, let me go check it out, y'all. Ray says, I'll come with you, son. So we go to the door and knock on the door, and a guy comes. I kid you not. He's wearing a big floppy beret and a black cape. And he opens the door, and he goes, he waves his hands in the air, goes, we're so glad you're here. And we look in. It's a big concrete room. And they've got hard wooden folding chairs sitting in a circle. And they're going to do a play in the round right in the middle. Okay. This is going downhill fast, right?
It's going downhill
I'm thinking,
fast.
This ain't going to work. I got people in there that don't want to sit on something hard for 10 minutes, much less 2 hours. So I said, let's go back and tell the group, excuse us, we'll be right back. So I'm thinking, and so I get the microphone, I said in the bus, I'm like, hey, y'all, I'm just, and Ray goes, let me have that there microphone just for a second. And I said, sure. And I handed it to him, and he goes, all he said was, friends, I feel it'd be best for us to move along. My fear is these bohemians may perform in the nude. And everybody just stared at us. And the bus door shut, and we drove off. And there's the guy with the beret and the cape just watching us drive away.
So saddened.
I don't know why I'm telling that story. I just loved Ray Keitel. He was just a cool man. I feel these bohemians may perform in the nude. I may have even told that story before. I don't know. Anyway, all right, we got a great show lined up for you. And yes, even though Scott from Huntsville is apoplectic about it, we're going to talk about school choice because I'm a firm believer in it. And Scott, if you want to call in and try and tell me why it's socialism, I'll be glad to debate you. But that being said, coming up top of the half hour, Terry Lathan, former chair of the Alabama Republican Party, who also believes in school choice, by the way, along with 90% of Republicans nationwide, by the way, is going to be on the line talking to us about the Price Act and what we're doing, where we're going. Is it going? I don't know. To add to the fray, we've got some new developments in Alabama education, which has nowhere to go but up. With, what is touted as one of the best kindergarten programs in the nation. And yet, the governor just saw fit to call for a change in leadership. Why? Could it have been the woke materials that were discovered being promulgated by said director of statewide early childhood education? I'll be glad to tell you all about it here in just a minute. So yeah, we're taking a break right now. We'll be right back. We'll come on in. Number one of the Triple Dipper, Alabama education. Nowhere to go but up. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid, conservative, just plain right. Saving the world one soundbite at a time. And, oh, by the way, covering down on some major ground across the northern half of the most beautiful state in the nation. I'm talking about Alabama. Yes, I am. And I mean, this show broadcasts its signal way on down south of Birmingham, almost to Montgomery, really, all the way up north of Huntsville, Tuscaloosa, back to Gadsden, parts of Georgia, Tennessee, and even Mississippi thrown in just for good measure. All right, let's get on it. So, in case you have not heard, interesting thing occurrred here in the last few days. Now, I'll tell you this. First of all, Governor Ivey is all in for kindergarten programs. All right, so it's one of the planks in her education platform, which I did not know she had an education platform, to be honest. But the governor in her State of the State address in February, I believe it was, she announced that she was calling on state legislators to even make mandatory kindergarten a thing. So I got mixed feelings on that. If you want to text in, do you believe that kindergarten should be mandatory? I don't know about that. But I'll be honest with you, the programs that we do have in Alabama are allegedly good ones. Alabama's kindergarten program, and by the way, the governor calls it Strong Start, Strong Finish. That's her overall education plan, which I don't know what it entails, truthfully. But anyway, but I'll give her credit for this. On her watch, the kindergarten program has really escalated into a fine, nationally recognized, award-winning program. Good deal. I'm glad to see Alabama doing something at some level in the public education arena that is catching the eye of, the rest of the nation. Well, so anyway, the governor did say in her State of the State address that she's calling on state legislators to make kindergarten a mandatory part of what she called the educational journey in Alabama. Story here off CBS 42. And she's not kidding. That's what she wants to do. And there are those in the education arena that are calling for it. Right now, it says kindergarten is not a requirement to enter the first grade in this state. This is something that Jefferson County Elementary Curriculum Director Dr. Angela Watkins is quoted in this article as saying she hopes will change. She said, in her opinion, teaching 5-year-olds important skills like handwriting, practicing sounds and letters and speeches will help set them up for success beyond first grade. Maybe, but I get into the mandatory piece. I mean, there's a whole lot of, childhood there. I look at it and think, do we want to say you will go to kindergarten 5 days a week that early? So I think we're talking about 4 or 5 years old. So mixed bag of feelings for that for me. If you got a thought, you let me. Apparently some people are already texting in about this. So Jenny from Decatur is texting in and says mandatory. Yes, especially in the state of Alabama. Nowhere to go but up. Okay. So you're all right. Your little man. Did he go to kindergarten?
Yeah, he's in kindergarten now.
Kindergarten now.
Yeah,
That's right, he is. Okay,
yeah,
I was thinking it was
now.
first grade,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, okay. But that's a choice, right?
Yeah. It is.
Our kids, yes. I went to kindergarten. I don't even know if Charlene did. Now I'm ashamed to say I've been married to her 37 years. I don't know if she went to kindergarten. I got to find out.
I need to ask about McQueen too. I actually don't know.
There. Okay, I feel better. But nonetheless, interesting development. Just this past weekend, actually, story broke on Fox News, no less. Fox News has a piece talking about the fact that the director of, is she a director or secretary? What's her position? I got to find it. Secretary. The Alabama Department of Early Childhood Education Secretary, Secretary Barbara Cooper, has, she's no longer in her job. You tell me, was she fired or did she resign under the understanding that she'd be fired? Because what happened is this. Apparently what we have is that right here in Alabama, and by the way, when you see the stuff about woke stuff in schools, you think, well, I'm glad I live in Alabama. Guess what? Keep your guard up because it doesn't matter where you live. Reddest of red states and the head of Alabama's Department of Early Childhood Education, according to Fox News dated Saturday, has resigned after Alabama Republican Governor Cave Ivey was made aware of woke concepts featured in the books that were being distributed to teachers in the state. So the end result is this. Ivy's administration was made aware. There's like multiple levels of things to talk about in here. First of all, I will say this. Kudos to Governor Ivy. I've told you before, I get frustrated with her sometimes, but at the same time, I've known her personally for a number of years, and when I hear her doing something right, I'll point this out, and I'm pointing it out right now. Good for her dealing with the issue. I'm glad to see her administration was not going to sit idly by and go, well, will it really hurt somebody? I mean, maybe we don't want to make the waves. Make the waves! The other piece of this is, I'd like to know how it was brought to her attention. What I'm gathering is someone in the field, maybe a teacher, because it was a teacher's handbook actually. Somebody in the field made her aware of the fact that this was ongoing. And she didn't dally, she got on it. Ivy's office said in a Friday press release last week it was brought to the administration's attention that there was concerning content in a pre-K educator resource book, content that is simply not in line with what the Ivy administration or the people of Alabama stand for or believe, said the governor's office. And upon learning about the specific content, she asked Secretary Barbara Cooper from the Alabama Department of Early Childhood Education to send a memo to disavow the book and immediately discontinue its use. My understanding is that apparently Secretary Cooper chose not to do that. Wow. The governor's office said, the education of Alabama's children is my top priority as governor. There's absolutely no room to distract or take away from this mission. So we don't know exactly how Cooper responded, according to this article from Fox. But Ivy's office said the governor then accepted Cooper's resignation after calling for a change in leadership. So what it sounds like is wokeness in the handbook in the department in which the secretary presides. Governor says, hey, that ain't going to fly on my watch, and you work for me, so I'm telling you, you need to deal with this right now, disavow it, and get it out of circulation. Something was said back, and the governor said, well, I believe it's time for a change in leadership. What do you think? Here's my resignation. That's where it went. Alabama's first-class pre-K is the best in the country, said the governor. Those children are too critical of a juncture in their educational journeys and development to get it wrong. I remain confident in the wonderful teachers we have in pre-K classrooms around our state. And the book, by the way, it's a pre-K educator resource. It's called the National Association for the Education of Young Children's Developmentally Appropriate Practice Book. The NAEYC. Guess who's on the board of the NAEYC? That would be Dr. Cooper, who resigned. Interesting. Pray tell, Phil, what ungodly things were in this book? Well, let me tell you. First of all, it was heavily laden with critical race theory. Material that led to Cooper's resignation, according to Ivy's office, invokes the ideas for teachers that there are, quote, larger systemic forces that perpetuate systems of white privilege and that the United States is built on systemic and structural racism. Okay, so CRT's in there. And then next, there was a whole ton of LGBTQ agenda stuff in there. Also included for 4-year-olds to learn is that LGBTQIA+ needs to hear and see messages that promote equality, dignity, and worth, and that this is in no way something that should be taught to 4-year-olds. Interesting. Well, it wasn't a curriculum, but it's a responsive, educator-developed, educator-informed, research-based resource, says the NAEYC, and now we have a vacancy that is being filled by the interim Dr. Jan Hume. Okay, so here's the bottom line. The governor saw it. She dealt with it. I am glad she dealt with it. Never should have been there in the first place. The lady who was peddling the book is apparently on the board of the organization that promotes the book. Something's rotten in Denmark, and I would hesitate to say that there was some kickback here because I don't know that. But I look at it and think, if you're on the board and you're bringing the book from the organization where you're on the board into the curriculum, and you know for a fact, by the way, you can't say you didn't know. You're on the board of the people that make the book. You preside over the department that uses the book in a state where they are bringing the divisive concepts bill up again, when the news is all about the fact that we don't want CRT and everything else. And that was a huge source of debate just in the last year or so in our state school board. And she didn't know. So what it sounds like to me, because she wouldn't renounce the book, Sounds like to me she wanted the book. And now she wants a new job. And I hope it takes a while to get it. There's that. We got a call real quick. I'll do that real quick. Brian from Huntsville. What are you doing, Brian? How are you?
Doing mighty fine. I hope you gentlemen are well.
Absolutely, man.
I'm sitting there listening to this mandatory kindergarten. That's fine as long as you can still homeschool or you can send them to a private school. Otherwise, their minds at that age are easy to mold, so to say.
I totally agree, which is a little concerning when you think about the other story that I just had here alongside that is the woke concept, CRT and all that was being promoted for teachers to use as resource material with their kindergartens. I mean, wow.
Well, if they're going to rip them out of my home for mandatory kindergarten, I want full access to any class materials and anything that the teacher says. Put cameras in.
Totally agree. Totally agree.
Yeah.
Good.
Have a good one, Steve.
Man.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Yeah, and by the way, the text lines are mixed on this one. Allison from Madison. Oh, she just texted me happy faces, or is it crying happy? Yes, laughing faces. I'm not sure what she's laughing at, but she's laughing. New texter. Do we not have a name? Bowling from Athens. Okay, Bowling from Athens says pre-K should be mandatory for a portion of the day. Toddlers fall behind mentally and socially when parents are not actively engaged. My kids went to a private pre-K for 3 hours a day, even though we weren't in daycare. My wife and I always rotated work shifts, so one parent was always at home with our kids, no daycare. But pre-K was good for the socializing aspect. I get it. And Russ, it's Russ from Athens. I appreciate it. Thanks, man, for the opinion. Kenneth from Hartselle. I'm glad our governor's a Christian and a believer in our Lord. Well, I am too, Kenneth. She still gets the fiscal policies wrong, but I'm glad she got this one right. John from Pike Road. Something totally different. I need to check on that later. That's not even related to our topic. Sheila from Madison says, kudos, she got rid of her, but she didn't appoint her. Didn't she appoint her in the first place? I don't know. I would imagine she served at the pleasure of the governor, but I don't know if she predated. I have no idea how long Barbara Cooper has been the secretary for early childhood education in Alabama. Well, I'll tell you what, we're going to move on to a break right now. We get this break done, we'll come right back and keep this going. And then top of the hour, you're going to want to hear Terry Lathan, former chair of the Alabama Republican Party, on the line to talk to us about what's happening with school choice in the State House. She's actively engaged. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative and just plain right. Well, I'm telling you right now, the issue of school choice is a hot topic on the nationwide level. So, yeah, we got issues in Alabama with our public schools, period. They just do. We got great educators. By the way, don't ever let yourself be fooled into the idea that because I'm for school choice, it means I'm anti-public education. That's not at all. I'm a product of public education. I mean, all the way up through college, all public. But my kids went to a private school. My wife's a public school product who then went and taught at private school. So all that to say, I've seen both. I know the merits of both. I know when both can be good and when both can be not so good. I have also been, by the way, in schools, me personally, where they were pretty poor, and I wound up having to play catch up when I went to the next school, military family, so we moved, right? But here's the thing. I'm going to say this over and over again. The underlying question with school choice, the underlying question is, do you believe that the tax dollars that already exist as a matter of law, are there to feed the system or to educate the child? If you believe they are there to feed the system, then you will always hate school choice. Because you can't take money away from the system. You can't. The school board might need it. The public schools might need it. But if we go school choice route, then you're the one who believes parents and kids are the ones that should have the greater say in what is needed. You should have parents literally having the opportunity to decide this is best for my child. And that's a concept that seems to fall on deaf ears when it comes to those whose sole motivation in life is to preserve the system, the machine, if you will. While there are great public schools out there, I graduated from Grissom High School, but I'll be honest with you, my first year in high school and junior high, by the way, was in a Department of Defense school overseas. And it was a great school. I enjoyed it in many ways, but it was not a great school academically. And I came back to the States and went to Grissom and had to play catch up. Early on in my life, Dad taught ROTC at Ole Miss after he got back from Vietnam. I did first grade in Oxford, Mississippi. Then we moved back to Huntsville, and I went to Chaffee Elementary, and I spent afternoons having to get caught up on things that they just weren't doing for me in the Mississippi schools. So I look at it and realize there are good and not so good public schools. But you know what I know? What I know is, my firm belief is, and I will defend this to the nth degree. My firm belief is that those tax dollars are there to educate the child first, not to put new gyms into the school, not to buy textbooks, not to give teachers raises even though education is 50th in the nation. None of it. None of it is more important than the child for whom the education system is supposed to have been built. All that to say, right now we have, once again, in front of us, a major opportunity for school choice to be picked up. And by the way, this is happening around the nation. There are people right now who are watching their legislators pass epic-level school choice legislation around the nation. It polls extremely high on a bipartisan level. USA Today reports as of today that Florida just expanded their school voucher program again. Florida's been in school choice now since 1999. Even though this USA Today article opines how this could be dangerous for schools, it's been there since 1999. So for, 24 years? And the system hasn't crashed yet? When does it crash? How about this? Red State has an article talking about the fact that South Carolina is on the cusp of giving parents the right to pick where their kids will go to school through an educational voucher program, very similar to the one being touted in Alabama right now. So 1819news.com points out by Dr. Daniel Sutter, a piece that was written. Daniel Sutter, by the way, is an economist, a very conservative individual at Troy State University, who writes on the fact that the Price Act, which we'll be talking about with our friend Terry Lathan here in just a minute, is before the legislature right now. And the Price Act we believe, because we see it other places, will in fact increase school choice. It will increase competition significantly. And it'll even, by the way, alter the market for teachers, because what will wind up happening is as the school gets better and the free market's coming in, it wants to stay better. And so the opportunity is there for locals to provide additional incentives if they want to. And they can do like they do with some football coaches and supplement their pay. How about that? Wouldn't that be amazing? Best schools, merit pay. That'd be cool. But then on top of it, you look at schools that are failing and you realize that a parent should not have to go, well, it's just, it's where we live, Junior, so that's where you have to go to school. I'm sorry you can't read. I'm sorry that you're in a failing school, but we can't afford to move, so you're just going to have to lump it, son. What kind of crap is that? All right, folks, Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Coming right back, our friend Terry Lathan. Stay tuned. We'll talk more.
You're listening live to Rightside Radio with Phil Williams. It's hard to go wrong when you're on the right side. Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right.
Alabama's syndicated news talk leader, Rightside Radio. Phil Williams here live on the Right Side studios for hour number 2. How did we get to hour number 2 already? Local, state, national, all the issues. And yes, like the dude just said, we cover them solid, conservative, and just plain right. Well, yeah, it is hour number 2. We're talking about Alabama education. There's nowhere to go but up. I told you a moment ago about Governor Ivey catching wind that there were some critical race theory and woke agendas into the early childhood education teacher's manual. And as a result, they are on the hunt right now for a new secretary for early childhood education. So congrats to the governor for that. The governor is also, by the way, asking for mandatory kindergarten. And I got mixed bags of feelings on that one. But mandatory kindergarten is part of her I think she called it the Start Strong, Finish Strong education platform. But then on top of that, what the governor has not been pushing for is true school choice. Inexplicably, we're just going to kind of, do the same old, same old. Well, same old ain't working. And a friend of mine who knows that quite well and has taken this on as a project is the former Alabama Republican Party chairwoman, Terry Lathan, who's on the line right now. She's got a grassroots thing going about the Price Act, which is our perfect school choice opportunity. And she's on the phone, so let's bring her on. Terry Lathan, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, and as always, I love being on the right side.
Well, thank you for that. By the way, before we jump into school choice, what are your thoughts on the mandatory kindergarten thing? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I haven't spent much time in that, and for full transparency, I'm actually a former 5th and 6th grade public school teacher.
Right.
I taught in the Mobile County Public Schools, which is the largest school system and has been for decades in the state of Alabama. So I did my thing that I've always wanted to grow up and do, and I was a teacher, and I miss it. I miss my classroom. I'm just in a different classroom these days, still with grown-ups, trying to help our kids in a classroom. I'm with you. I'm a mixed bag on this one. I know the governor is focused on education, and she really, really wants to do some things and pushing some good things. I think parents need to decide if they think their child is ready to go or should go at 5 years old to kindergarten. But I will say the stats show us if you can get them in there earlier, that they most likely are going to do better, and that does give them a leg up. So I guess it depends upon who you ask. It depends upon a family situation, but the stats don't lie on that. That's true.
Well, and that's I'm not arguing the stats. You're right. They do prove that out. I get worried about at what point do we stop making it mandatory attendance? I mean, these kids are going to wind up being in for the next 13, 14 years, even if they don't go to college. So it's a lot, but let me ask you this. That's a parental decision. You mentioned it. Parents can make that decision. Yeah. But parents aren't allowed to make a lot of decisions about education for their kids in Alabama. States all over the nation South Carolina is on the cusp of doing the major school choice thing with education vouchers. They just expanded it in Florida, did it in Arkansas. I think it was Iowa already did it. It's every Arizona.
Utah. And North Carolina's queuing up. Florida, it's fallen across the nation, no question.
Well, that being said, I'm not hearing a lot out of Montgomery except some misgivings about the idea of the Price Act, which is our landmark legislation that could change the way we do education in Alabama. What are you hearing, and where are we right now?
Yeah, so PRICE is an acronym that stands for Parental Rights in Children's Education, and it's basically a universal K through 12 bill that says, parents, if you want to take your state dollars, which we all chip in for each student in our state, it's about $7,000 a state, $4,000 is federal and local, for a total of $11,000 per student, $11,000. If you want to take your $7,000, and if you believe for some reason your zip code public school, which is a government school, is not doing what they need for your student, or your child needs to go somewhere else for whatever the reason is. It's not my place or Phil, your place, any of us to decide that. The parent should. You should be able to take your $7,000 and move them to a facility if they will accept it. If they will accept it's an education savings account, just a transfer. Like you transfer if you have a checking account and a savings account,
right,
and you just transfer your money over. So there's no cash, no debit cards, none of that sort of stuff. It doesn't change the laws for homeschool. It doesn't change the laws for any private. It doesn't change the laws for the Alabama Athletic Association. So it's a real let the parents choose. Now, I'll tell you something interesting. We're seeing across the nation, and we've been tracking for years, states that have school choice, there's only about a 2% average of movement from the schools.
Yeah.
Only about a 2%. Now, someone might go, oh, well, it's only 2%. Well, what if your child is one of that 2%, or your grandchild, or a friend's child, or a relative of yours? Who are we to say, well, it's only 2%? I think this is a perfect example of conservatism in the Republican Party platform on the national level, on the state party level. The Alabama Federation of Republican Women just passed a resolution supporting the Price Act. And so we're trying to cue something up. How far we get, we're about to see. But it's good to go. We're going to go ahead and start this conversation.
Well, all right. So you and I both agree with regards to school choice on what I would call the who, what, why, when, and where. We both like the Price Act.
Yeah.
We both want to see parents have the right and a say in their child's education. But then there's the how. So the who, what, why, when, where, and how. So the how is the legislative process has got to move this. And I'm hearing some folks say we feel like it's got momentum, and I'm hearing other folks saying not a snowball's chance. So right now, the committee process is underway. We've got two versions of the bill, I believe, one, companion bills, we call them, one by Senator Stutz and the other by Representative Yarbrough. What's the deal?
Right.
Where are they in the committee process right now? Do you know?
Yeah. So, I'm glad you asked that. The first committee hearing will be this Wednesday in 2 days.
Okay.
At 9 o'clock on the 8th floor in the Alabama State House. And anyone listening that would like to come and support this, it's really important you let your elected officials know that as parents, grandparents, and taxpayers, and as conservatives, that we support. Let the parents make this decision. That's this Wednesday at 9 a.m. I would advise you get early so you can get through security and up to the 8th floor. But that is the Senate Education Policy Committee, and they will hear it first.
Okay.
Up to bat first.
Who's chairing that this year? I don't even recall who the chair of that is.
It's Donnie Chastain.
That's
He's
right.
from the 2nd Congressional District.
And is he going to give it a fair shake? Do you know?
I hope so. I was around when Donnie got elected to the state Senate.
Yeah.
He was so excited. We had many conversations watching him go through that process. So I hope he certainly will. Look, we are a very conservative state. We want our parents, their hands on the controls of their children's education. That's not a hard ask. And we need to, at the end of the day, let them decide. Let them make that decision where their child goes to school. It is time to bust up zip codes and not let a zip code decide where your child goes to school. And in this conversation, Phil, you and I have not mentioned teachers or administrators or the good people in the classrooms, because that's not what this bill is about. This is just funding. Please give me that shot to take my child where I'd like to. And who's paying the bill? The citizens are paying 100% of the bill, and they should have the say.
And the money's already there. We're not adding any new taxes. We're not changing the dynamic. You're right. Only about 2% on the average wind up taking advantage of it. They can't just have the cash in their pocket and then pretend they educated their child. It goes straight to the school. The school has to enroll and participate in the program and be on the registry in order for it to happen. And then one of the things that's very cool about this bill is there's carryover. If you wind up finding the opportunity for education in a quality school of your choice and you have money left over at the end of the year, it can lap over to the next year. It can even lap over to college level if you wanted to, right?
It does. It does. It rolls year after year. If you do not use a pull down or use your child savings account, that's $7,000 per child per year. It's not per family.
Yeah.
Per child per year. It rolls over year after year to your 18. And at 18 years old, if you have money, if there's money left over, it's your state dollars, your family dollars, you can use it to go to college on if they will accept it, or even a vocational school, a technical school, a cosmetology school. And at 21, it would end. And if you don't lose it, if you don't use it, you lose it. It just stays back in the state coffers.
Yeah.
It is a chance to lift people up and out that may never have that opportunity. And we've got it queued up for Wednesday in the Senate Education Policy Committee, 9 a.m. at the State House. Would love people to come. Is
that going to be a public hearing, and are you speaking or anybody else speaking on behalf of the bill besides the bill sponsor?
Yes. My understanding, there are 4 speakers for and 4 speakers against. I have been asked to be one of the 4.
Okay. Well, outstanding.
And we also, on that note, we've got some strong Alabama Republican Party polling coming out, I hear, in the next 24 hours that clearly says our folks want this. And so I hope everyone will listen and trust the parents and their money with their child. I just don't think that's too hard of an ask.
And let me just say this too, Terry. There's the ability. Most of these conference rooms will live stream the conference committees or the committees with the bills up, and you can see the public hearings. So I need to find out. You say it's 8th floor, so I know exactly which room that is. There's only one on the 8th floor, I believe. Or maybe there's a couple now. As a matter of fact, they did some remodeling. But nonetheless, I'm going to find out and if I can find the link, we'll post it on the Rightside Radio website and let folks know how to go watch it if they want to, if they can't be there live.
I think it's in the Finance and Taxation Committee room.
Yeah.
And I think that's room 825. But that's on. I do know that's online. You can hunt it down on their legislative response. And by the way, shout out and bravo to Governor Kay Ivey for doing something when brought to her attention on this ridiculous K-4 teacher manual with things that have nothing to do with taking care of 4-year-olds.
I totally agree. I agree with you on that one. I'll call balls and strikes, and that was a good one on her part. Hey, we got to go. We got to run to break. Terry, thanks so much for your time, and keep us posted on this for Wednesday, okay?
Yes, sir. Have a blessed day. Thank you, Phil.
All right, you too. Bye-bye. All right, that's Terry Lathan, former chair of the Alabama Republican Party. She was the chair for 8 years, I believe, and been very active in a number of causes over the years. She has organized a grassroots opportunity right now for folks who care about school choice to get involved and speak up and have their voices heard. And the first thing out the gate, it's this Price Act. All right, folks, we're going to switch gears. When we get back, y'all stay tuned. We're moving into number 2 on the Triple Dipper. Fit to fight. How's our military? We'll talk about it. Y'all stay tuned. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative, just plain right, making it cool to be a conservative. All right, hey, listen, by the way, speaking of making it cool to be a conservative, I tell you, somebody who I have just appreciated over the years, who I think is one of the best at articulating a position and doing so convincingly and addressing whatever needs to be addressed and giving a common sense, very clear approach to it, has been Tucker Carlson. And yes, I just spoke in the past tense because I don't know what's going on. But the breaking news, if you hadn't heard it just before the show today, the breaking news is that Fox and Tucker Carlson have parted ways. Kid you not, the number one evening news talk show in the world, Tucker Carlson, and he is now gone. A lot of things flying out there about why or why not. I don't know. They say they parted ways amicably. I hope that's the case. But, you know, I remember back in the days when Glenn Beck was there, and then Glenn Beck wanted to go and do, you know, Blaze TV. And that's been his thing. But that's just kind of Glenn Beck. And then Bill O'Reilly, he was in that evening slot. And they didn't part in good ways. There were claims, you know, being made about sexual harassment or something, I believe, with Bill O'Reilly. And next thing you know, boom, the afternoon or the evening talk show is gone. Now we got Tucker Carlson. I have no idea. Now there's this whole thing, if you didn't catch it, that Dominion Voting Systems, the company that had the voting machines that created so much, you know, furor among all of us who watched the elections with dismay. Dominion Voting Systems claimed that they, in a defamation suit against Fox News, that they had been defamed by Fox, and that they settled it for $745 million. But they sued for like $1.5 billion. So wow. But they settled the case, and they announced a settlement like last Thursday or Friday. On Friday, they announced Dan Bongino was no longer with the network, officially right this weekend. So Dan Bongino's Saturday evening show, poof, it went away. And then come Monday, today, they announced that Tucker Carlson is gone, and last Friday was his last show. They're not even playing. I mean, they're done. It's just we're done. We're over. He's gone. Now I don't know what's going to wind up happening. Maybe we're going to find out that, you know, Megyn Kelly was just like boom, gone. Like what the heck, man? I mean, they burned through some top news hosts at Fox like nothing I've ever seen. Now CNN fired Don Lemon today too, which was way overdue. That guy was such a turd. I cannot imagine how he stayed on as long as he did. But did not see Tucker Carlson coming, and I cannot help but believe that it's interesting timing that Tucker and Dan Bongino were both. Now, I don't think Tucker Carlson spent a lot of time calling out Dominion Voting Systems. But, I mean, I'll tell you right now that I'm skeptical of Dominion. I am totally skeptical of that whole election. I think there were some extreme irregularities. There were some violations of the law, and some things happened that shouldn't have happened. And then there's a whole Hunter Biden laptop thing, which we'll talk about later in today's show. But I'm just telling you, that was a jacked up election. You can't tell me otherwise. It just was. And it was very close. And it was filled with irregularities. That's a bad combination. If it had been a runaway and Biden had won with 5% of the vote, no, he did not. All that to say, Tucker Carlson is out, and that's crazy to me. If you want to text in about it, you're welcome to it. 833-687-4448. That's the text lines. 833-68-RIGHT. That's how we call it. Love to hear your thoughts on it. If you want to chime in about school choice or mandatory kindergarten, please do. But those stories are out. I got a ton of text messages. I tell you what, we get back from this break we're about to take, I'll go ahead and take a look at text messages because they got away from me, Boomer. I had my friend Terry Lathan call in, and all of a sudden,
boom, there they are.
Yeah, like explosion time, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right.
That's right.
There it is.
That's our text line right now. All right. We'll have some fun with that. We'll do the text when we get back, and then we'll jump right on into the military of fit to fight. Are we? Depends who you talk to. But there are clear indications that we are not where we've been, and there are many say that we're not where we should be. Our U.S. military is still strong, but are they truly fit to fight on the world stage right now with all that we have going on? We'll talk about it. Phil Williams, Right Side Radio. Y'all stay tuned. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative and just plain right, covering down on some major ground across the northern half of the most beautiful state in the nation, Alabama. I'm talking about this show goes way down south of Birmingham, up north of Huntsville, Tuscaloosa, back to gas to parts of Georgia, Tennessee, Mississippi, thrown in just for good measure. Going to jump over the text lines, but I got to ask you, Boomer. So Tucker Carlson's out. Thoughts?
Yeah. It blew my mind when you told me that earlier. I just can't believe that they got rid of the number one guy. And I don't know if there was any type of buyout or anything, but on the news sources right now, wouldn't it say something like Tucker Carlson chose to leave or something? Decided to leave. If it was his choice to do so.
Well, you would think, but we
I know they'd manipulate it, but
yeah, the lawyers got involved. I'm sure
Right.
and told them how to say it. And I would guarantee you too that if he was being let go for cause, he doesn't want that to affect his career. So they worked out an amicable opportunity to buy out his contract or whatever. Then again, I don't know. Maybe he's been doing some epic level like podcast style, streaming productions.
yeah.
And so part of me wonders, is he going to show up in a different venue and rock the world? He came from a place where he did a lot of like what you and I do at Daily Caller. Daily
Right.
Caller was his. He started Daily Caller. He sold out his piece in that and became a Fox News guy. Who knows? Maybe he goes back and creates something new.
Maybe. We'll see where he pops up.
And I would bet there had to be a non-compete he had to be let out of too. So in order to leave, he probably had to be agreeable so they can't bind him from doing what he does.
Right.
I don't know, man. It's crazy. We'll see. I want to jump on some text messages. If you see any you want to jump on too, Boomer, just tell me. But Missy from Falkville says, sorry, but the election wasn't even close when we went to bed. Trump was winning by 200,000 votes in one state. Bongino, Carlson, and AM radio. This is an all-out war on conservatives. I don't disagree. Says, I honestly believe this is a war of good versus evil. Time to pick a side. I know God wins in the end. That's the side I'm on. Thank you, Missy. Appreciate you as always.
Chris from Gadsden, is this your way telling us you're moving to Fox News?
Well, I didn't want to get ahead of the story, but I agreed that for just like half of Tucker's paycheck that Boomer and I would go to Fox. But I don't know what's going to happen yet. I can't speak to it.
Probably a quarter.
All right, let me ask you. Let me ask you this, Boomer. Let's postulate. You're ready to postulate.
Let's go.
Let's postulate on this. If they come in and they offer us like mega money, but we have to live in New York City.
Oh man.
So just hey,
Okay.
what are you gonna do?
Like, do I have to live there or can I commute
So,
by my personal jet?
I actually, yeah, I believe that Will Cain, who is a Fox News personality, who I'm not going to be a bit surprised doesn't wind up with the evening show, to be honest. But I believe that Will Cain actually commutes back and forth to Texas. He goes home on the weekends.
There's actually quite a bit of like talent and even people in the background that commute those ways, depending on what job. Obviously,
Do you see that in the
they're
music
doing.
industry?
Tons of music industry. Like even me here in Alabama, if I wanted to jump back into the music industry, I could actually still be right here and then just go out and meet everybody on tour and then come back.
No, you couldn't.
I could not because I'm here at Rightside.
No, you couldn't. 'Cause I have McQueen's phone number and we would work something out. But anyway,
yeah, there's a lot that do that.
well, I don't know what's happening. Let's see. Alan from Arab. He's talking about what we just said. He said, I thought the same. Bert from Owens Crossroads, he says, perhaps Fox was paid big money by the Dems to get rid of Tucker. I don't know. They hated Tucker, that's for sure. I mean, he's the most effective communicator that I know of in recent years. Brian from Huntsville, he says, heck no to New York City. You can't carry there. That's a good point. What the heck
right.
would we do?
I don't know.
We're a gun-toting studio.
They wouldn't like us there.
That and we don't drink Bud Light with transgender faces on it either.
Nope.
Just saying. Anita from South Huntsville, Mercy. We've lost Tucker Carlson. For all you Alabama football fans out there, you should know that being an Auburn fan feels about the same as being a conservative in America right now. Yeah, constant struggles and frustrations, but at least you know you're cheering for the cooler team.
Wow. Did you see the Wendy from Moulton, Alabama? She said that Tucker's producer's gone too. They were saying that they had a show, a meeting show for tonight's planned the show, and then after the meeting, they announced Tucker was gone and we'd not be here for this evening.
Wow.
Whoa, I did not know that.
So it's Tucker and his boomer are also gone.
I'm guessing his whole floor of staff is a little worried.
Because he had like 100 boomers.
I'm sure.
All right. The name of Scott from Decatur wants to know the name of the book I was talking about Auschwitz. I'll just say it to you right now, Scott. And if I get a chance to type it in later for you, I will. It's called Escape from Auschwitz. And the author is Joel C. Rosenberg. Great book. Loved that book. It was one of those, it's been a while since I've had one that I just couldn't put down, but I spent a chunk of my Sunday afternoon reading and because of that. So yeah, Escape from Auschwitz, author Joel C. Rosenberg. Great book. Another one, that's what we already got that one. What else we got in there, Boomer? Allie from Athens says, it'll be amazing to see who picks these guys up, Tucker Carlson, and gives them shows that make them even more of a household word than they already are. I don't know. Then again, does anybody ever hear Bill O'Reilly and I just named her a while ago. What was the female dadgummit? I just Megyn Kelly, and then Glenn Beck. I mean, for the most part, they're not on Fox. They're not as mainstream anymore, which can be good. Russ from Athens points out that Glenn Beck had a similar demise of Fox. His message was drifting away from mainstream over to truth, he says, and wound up with his own network. Unfortunately, I believe Tucker was a victim of Fox News settling the lawsuit with Dominion. Maybe so. Very maybe so. Is that you typed that in for Scott from Decatur?
I did.
Thank you, bud.
Yep.
Appreciate it. You got Joel C. R. is the last name. Joel C. Rosenberg. Okay. He'll get it. All right, listen. We're going to jump over to the next topic. And I got to tell you, I'll kick it off with this. You may recall that we had an interview on the show, gosh, it's been 6 months at least, with retired 3-star General Jerry Boykin. Great interview. It's up on our podcast. If you want to find it, you can. By the way, our podcasts are like at 137,500-ish or something like that right now. But General Boykin was one of the founding members of Delta Force, a participant in almost all the major operations in the early days of Special Operations Command. He was part of Operation Eagle Claw to rescue the Iran hostages. He was part of the invasion of Grenada. He was part of the invasion of Panama. He was in charge of the hunt for Pablo Escobar. He was the Delta Force commander in Black Hawk Down. General Jerry Boykin has been there and done that. He also loves the Lord. He's a very active and outspoken Christian. He now in retirement not only provides Fox News contributions for military, but he also is the vice president of the Family Research Council, which is about as anti-woke as you can possibly get. All that to say, General Boykin was here on Rightside Radio. And as we were finishing up the interview, I asked him about wokeness in the military, and I also asked him, in all his years in the military, did he ever see what are being referred to now as systemic racist issues? And he said, absolutely not. And I totally agree. My experience, 30 years, absolutely not. My father, my grandfather, absolutely not. So all this stuff that we're seeing, that we're being told is there, is this part of an agenda, in my opinion. It's being driven right now so they can do things to the military and unhinge certain things and change policies because they have a boogeyman. Well, we got to have a training halt. Nothing's going to happen for a period of time while we work on dealing with systemic racism in the ranks. What a crock of crap. Do you really think that if the military was systemically racist, that General Colin Powell would have been the chairman of the Joint Chiefs? Do you really think that if the military was, just a racist and burdensome organization, that the number of people who are in it, who are people of color, who are minorities, would have stayed in? For that matter, would have gotten in. Now, this is an agenda. It's being driven. And these kind of agendas, though, by the way, are weakening the military in a huge way. Now, I got to tell you, we're going to talk about it when we get back from the break. But the first thing out the gate, I'm going to tell you, if you didn't hear it, back in October, the Heritage Foundation, which does an annual report on the strength of the military, they came out with, for the first time ever, labeling American hard power as weak. Well, no, that's a shame. Should never have to be that way. And the Heritage Foundation, they had some pretty solid criteria to go by. Pentagon didn't like it. They didn't care for it. Made them mad, hurt their feelings. You know what? Do we care about feelings? The left does. I care about winning wars. All right, folks, Phil Williams, Right Side Radio. We'll be right back with Fit to Fight. Y'all stay tuned. And we are back. Phil Williams, Right Side Radio, solid and conservative and just plain right, making it cool to be a conservative. All right, hey, listen, I'm in number 2 of the Triple Dipper, Fit to Fight. So if you're not familiar, the Heritage Foundation, I hope you're familiar with the Heritage Foundation. If you're not, if you're a conservative, you're not familiar with the Heritage Foundation, I would encourage you to get familiar. Heritage Foundation has been a conservative policy think tank on the national level for, decades. They're one of the premier, maybe the premier conservative policy think tanks. There's other good ones that are out there, but Heritage has great staff. In fact, you hear me quite often bring on Justin Bogey here on this show, who talks about fiscal policy. He used to be a fiscal analyst with the Heritage Foundation himself. But the Heritage Foundation, part of what they examine, they have an entire department of retired military senior officers and others who write on military policy, and they come out with the Heritage Foundation's U.S. Military Strength Index. Well, for the first time ever, at the end of 2022, they came out and assessed American hard power as weak. Caught a lot of people off guard. Didn't see that coming. Now, do I dispute it? Not based on the criteria they use. Now, the Pentagon wants to dispute their criteria. So I'm looking at a piece from Heritage on a write-up of this issue, and they claim that the Pentagon's leaders are, quote, none too pleased, saying this is silly and dangerous. Silly and dangerous. Okay, silly and dangerous. The question is, are we fit to fight? That's what we want to know. And the Pentagon takes issue with the silly and dangerous gradings given by the Heritage Foundation, who's been doing this for years. I guarantee you, by the way, if they came out and said strong, then the Pentagon will be going, see, we're on the money because Heritage says so. But they come out and say weak, and guess what? It's not received well. But here's the thing. It's based in part upon, and those of you out there who have an opinion on this, you're welcome to share it. But it's based on what the Pentagon calls the outdated requirement that the military be able to fight 2 wars simultaneously. Okay. In the era of a Great War, which is what we're looking at again, we're looking at, large-scale potential Great War, potential conflict with, nation on nation as opposed to ideology-based or asymmetric warfare or counterinsurgency. We're looking at Great War powers, China, Russia, North Korea, major entities like Iran playing a part in those. So with that being said, is it wise for us not to have a policy of fighting on 2 wars simultaneously? You remember like World War II. We were in both the European and Pacific theaters. All right. Where did this metric get changed? Oh, that's right. It was the Obama administration. So the Obama administration changed the metric requirement to a single war capability being the standard. Oh, good. I love it when Obama gives us a military standard because that's going to work out so well. Now, I will say this. Okay, Trump did not change it, and I'm perplexed by that, except that I do know that Trump was rebuilding. But Trump did not change it, so I don't know what to say to that. But I know it was changed by Obama and touted by Biden, maintained by Trump for reasons I can't describe. But I find no comfort at all in knowing that the standard that we go by now for measuring our capabilities based upon a single front, a war in one theater. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, looking through this, the index draws its information from the Pentagon's own reports, testimony to Congress, statements from senior officials, acquisition data, other publicly available information relevant to understanding the state of America's military, and the military assessment section of the 2023 index includes nearly 700 footnotes supporting the conclusions. They also point this out. By the way, my latest op-ed is out today. Is it already up on the website, Boom? It's already up on the website because Boomer is who he is. It's already out there on 1819 News. It gets picked up by the Trustful Tribune. It gets picked up by roughly 18 different periodicals around the state over the next week or so. This one's called A Time to Build. I did a similar monologue on this recently, but I pointed out that my father, who was a retired Army officer, told me as a young lieutenant when I asked him one day, I said, Dad, do you think I'll ever go to war? His response was, son, there's never been an American generation that didn't have a war. I had never thought about that. In this article from Heritage, they point out that very thing. They say the U.S. has found itself at war every 15 to 20 years since it was founded. That's a sobering statistic when you think about it. In every major conflict since World War II, it says the Army has committed 21 brigade equivalents of ground forces, the Marine Corps, roughly 15 battalions, the Air Force, around 600 fighter attack aircraft. Numerous studies have concurred with these historical realities. Today, the Army has 31 brigades. In other words, 2/3 would be committed if we went with similar past. Marine Corps has 22 battalions. They typically commit 15. The Air Force has approximately 626 combat-coded aircraft. We usually commit somewhere around 600. During the Cold War, the Navy maintained 600 ships and kept 100 at sea. Today, it has fewer than 300 ships and keeps the same number deployed. And fleet size will soon shrink to 280. What I'm telling you is this. We are not where we need to be, in my opinion. Now, it says Colonel Williams. Who am I, right? But I'm telling you the Heritage Foundation supports that. And assessing this as dangerous is, to say the least, an understatement. Let me jump on to line one before I go to the break. I'll do that real quick. Is that Sparky? Hey, Sparky from Harvest. How you doing, brother? We got about a minute.
All right. Thanks, Phil and Boomer. Great show, great topic, and thank you for your service. I served quite a few years. I wasn't exactly what you would call a steely-eyed killer who constantly sharpening his Gerber knife, preparing and thirsting for war, but I was ready for it. We all were, guys and gals, knowing that the big machine, all the armed forces around us were ready to do their job and do it well. A lot of the young people who are getting out in droves now, people refusing to join now, and then older people retiring quickly now, bemoan that it's all about identity and gender politics, woke policies. Nothing is about being prepared for war and executing violently when the time comes. And it's tragic. There's a chance to turn it around, of course, but it takes strong leadership at the top, people who have actually ever held a job, let alone been anywhere near the military. Barack Obama definitely didn't qualify, and Joe Biden never has and never will.
Yeah, you were so right. In fact, I've got a friend right now whose son has spent 10 years in the Ranger Regiment. He's getting out, even though he's potentially an E6 promotable. He's getting out because he is sick to death of watching woke policies even infect our most elite Tier 1 fighting forces like the Ranger Regiment. It's unbelievable.
And it's tragic, the history and the heritage behind. I mean, just start with all the names of our posts where all of us cut our teeth, and all changed names changed in an endeavor to erase history and pander to the woke mob. Very, very tragic to me.
It is, man. All right, the music's playing, Spark. I got to run to a break. Appreciate you, man. Thanks for your service, too. We appreciate you very much.
You be good, man.
Absolutely. All right, we're heading into the third hour. How's that even happen? All right, we're going to stay with this topic. In fact, you might want to know, how many more glass ceilings have we broken lately to maintain the Army as a place where it's sensitive and you can be found to find your true self? Yeah, we'll talk about that. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back.
You're listening live to Rightside Radio with Phil Williams. It's hard to go wrong when you're on the right side. Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right.
Alabama's syndicated news talk leader, Rightside Radio. Phil Williams here live from the Rightside Studios. Man, we got all the issues. I'm talking about we got the local, the state, the national, sometimes the international, and yeah, like the dude just said, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Hey, I'm talking about our military right now. Are they fit to fight? I got personal opinions about. Now, I will tell you this. I still believe in the U.S. military. I absolutely do. My dad served through what Carter made the Hollow Army. And I remember those days, but I didn't understand fully what was happening, but Dad did. He came out of, he was already 10 years in, had 2 tours in Vietnam, and in the mid 70s were just gross. It was like just sucked the life out of the military, the Hollow Army. But then we came back under Reagan. I know it can happen. It's leadership is what it's going to take. And I will say this, the U.S. military can still execute missions, and these are selective missions. Like, for instance, just this weekend, we had a ready force of roughly 100 special operations soldiers, we were told. I thought Marines had the typical non-combatant evacuations. They call them NEOs, the non-combatant evacuation operations for the U.S. embassies. But special operations forces, we're told, actively went in and rescued over 100 American personnel in Sudan. And there's still more. Right now it's a mixed bag depending upon which news source you're looking at. Is either A, the State Department is working to get other Americans out because there's still hundreds there, or B, they're telling them to hunker down in place and don't rely on us to come get you. I don't know what's happening, but it is, of course, Tony Blinken in charge of the State Department, so who knows. But go back to my original. U.S. military can still conduct operations. The question is not whether we can still do stuff or whether we have the best rifles or whether we have the ability to, conduct limited scale operations. The question right now is, are we pacing with our near peer adversary, China? Are we prepared for a major Great War operation? Are we prepared for a full mobilization? Could we? And oh, by the way, what are we doing in terms of policies? What do we care about? What is the leadership pushing for right now? Well, so here's a story that's caught my attention. And by the way, she is probably a highly effective leader. I don't know anything about her career except what they tell me in this article. What I do know is this. First of all, military.com, which I do reference quite often for stories, is a liberal rag, all right? But military.com, we don't have a press release talking about the new commander per se at the Naval Academy. What we have is Navy names first woman to lead the Naval Academy. By the way, this same woman is the first female superintendent of the Naval Academy, who was at one point the first Hispanic American woman to command a Navy warship, who was at one point the first Hispanic American woman to command a carrier strike group. And by the way, those are big jobs. Those are great things. If she did them and did them effectively, and apparently she didn't fail up, she was promoted up, we understand. But all they care about in this article is the glass ceiling. What I want to know is, she's going to the Naval Academy. Is she the best person for the job? That's what we care about. The world doesn't really care whether or not our military is led by the next person to break a glass ceiling. Woo! No, what we care about is, are you training warriors? Are you advancing readiness? Are you ensuring that the future of America will be stable in terms of having a fighting force that is fit to fight? That's all we care about. Congratulations to, what is her name? Rear Admiral Yvette Davids. Congratulations on your new assignment, ma'am. And I hate to I'm not putting an asterisk by your name at all because I feel certain you earned the right to be there. And she's a Academy grad herself, so she's kind of going home. Very cool. Glad of it. She's also married to another Rear Admiral who is in charge of special operations for the Navy, I believe. Very cool. But the entire article is filled with nothing but comments about whether or not she broke the next glass ceiling. The the over-focus on this. And by the way, this article is on military.com. All these articles are posted on our website now. If you want to see them, rightsideradio.org. Rightsideradio.org. Go to the live stream tab, very top of the page. Boomer's got a button there that says resources. Hit it, and today's Triple Dipper is there, and every story to go with it is there. If you want to see it, you'll find the article. I've got mine highlighted, marked up, noted on. That being said, we're looking at our own Senator Tommy Tuberville is quoted in this article because he's been blocking military nominees from quick confirmation over his opposition to the Pentagon's recently announced, and here's how they put it, military.com. Tuberville's opposition over the Pentagon's recently announced travel and leave policies for troops seeking reproductive care. Boomer, translate that for me. What does that mean? Reproductive care.
Reproductive care. Like if you're going to have a baby.
Abortions.
Abortions?
Yes.
They totally why did they do
Boomer.
that? Oh.
You think reproductive care actually means reproducing? It means stopping reproduction.
Stopping
Yeah.
reproduction.
Anyway, Tuberville's got her held up. She may not get her confirmation for a while, but she has already been appointed. How about that? Next, I have in my hands, aside from the fact that I can't hit the cough button, is a story from Politico. Oh, Phil, did you go to Politico? Yes, I did. Big, thick article. Headline, dated April 9th. Just what, 2 weeks ago? DOD's highest-ranking trans official says that ostracizing anybody will hurt military readiness. That's the statement. We're talking about Sean Skelly, a former Navy commander who, served ably to the extent that we know, is the first openly trans Assistant Secretary of Defense for Readiness. Well, I think that's the position that was held by Alabama's Casey Wardynski. But the Assistant Secretary of Defense for Readiness. Oh, now we're starting to see. Where is policy formed? In the civilian sector of the military. Oh, that's right, the secretaries and all that. And, of course, the Biden administration hands it down from the executive branch. But nonetheless, the appointees, the secretaries and assistant secretaries and the undersecretaries, they are the ones who promote and promulgate policy. And the Assistant Secretary of Defense for Readiness is a glass ceiling breaker. The first openly trans Assistant Secretary of Defense. In this case, for readiness. Her comments, what is he? He was a dude, yeah, I think, yes, is a dude, yeah. Is a dude that now believes he's a chick. So Skelly has a message for Republicans accusing the Department of Defense of promoting diversity and inclusion in the armed forces at the expense of military readiness. Their campaign, Republicans, is what's hurting the military's warfighting capabilities. Right! That's right. It's the Republicans saying, we just want warfighters. We want people who are warriors. We want folks who are skilled logisticians and skilled mechanics and, highly skilled pilots and people who know how to jump out of airplanes and all of it. Give us sailors who know how to, sail. But we're spending so much time. Now we know that part of the reason why is because Sean Skelly is the Assistant Secretary of Defense for Readiness, who is himself a transgender, who is himself saying it's the Republicans that are hurting readiness with their campaign against, diversity and inclusion. Here's the quote. If you want to be ready, then you have to ensure that everybody that's in your force can be their best selves and contribute as a member of a team and be seen as valuable, said Skelly, speaking at the Pentagon in, his first in-depth interview since taking the job in 2021. So let me get this straight. Casey Wardynski used to hold this position, Assistant Secretary for Manpower and Readiness. When he left office, when Trump, didn't hold the presidency, it went to the first openly transgender who is now saying that it's important that for readiness, you be able to be your best self. I'm just saying. This goes on to say, by the way, let me point out something. As an attorney, I will just tell you, there's a thing called BFOQs, bona fide occupational qualifications. You can't discriminate against someone for a handicap or because they're pregnant or because of gender. But you're allowed, though, to have, under the law, certain bona fide occupational qualifications. For instance, a fireman cannot be in a wheelchair because the fireman and the person in a wheelchair can't climb the ladder. Similar with the military. In the military, you have to be able to pass a physical training test. You have to be able to do certain things to get through basic training. All right, if you can't do those things, or if you're so impaired by your gender dysphoria that you're not sure where you stand and you require mental health counseling and perhaps elective surgeries to modify your body, and you're just concerned because the women are freaking out because you're a naked man in the shower even though you call yourself a woman. I'm just saying readiness degrades with that kind of thing. We got Boomer. I'm supposed to go to a break, but I see you got somebody on the line. Is that Jeff? I tell you what, tell Jeff to hold on during the break. We'll do that. We'll come right back. I'm going to stick with this article because it just gets better. Like, I don't know, Skelly herself, even had to work through her own thoughts of self-harm and hire a counselor to help him through his final days in the military. And guess what? Now he's in charge of readiness, making sure that we can all find our true selves. Yeah, that'll help. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative, just plain right. Hey, I got to tell you, my friends at ZLA Solutions, I was even talking to them this morning. At ZLA Solutions, they are like epic good at helping you get the people you need for your work site. Now, they do all kinds of things with businesses. They can help you with your logistics, your warehousing, sorting, containment, quality control, all that kind of stuff. But yeah, their bread and butter remains staffing. It doesn't matter whether it's you need temp hires or you need direct hires that are going to be on staff. ZLA Solutions, they do that, man. They can do blue collar, white collar, no collar, doesn't matter. They can do the recruiting, the background checks, the drug testing, all of it. I'm just saying, you need to, if you need people, doesn't matter whether you need onesies and twosies with special niche skills or whether you need like a whole shift full of people, they can work that out. They're doing it for people, for businesses all over North Alabama, big name employers. You would recognize a bunch of them. So check them out. If you need help with that, ZLA Solutions at ZLAUSA.com. That's their website, ZLAUSA.com. And do me a favor, by the way, tell them you heard about it on Rightside Radio. That's I always get a big kick when folks say, man, we got some folks that called in from your show. So yeah, check them out, ZLAUSA.com, ZLA Solutions. Let me jump over to the phones real quick. I appreciate the fact that Jeff from Indiana is probably stuck in Nashville traffic right now. Hey, Jeff Rowe, how you doing?
You hit that one on the nail.
Hey, by the way, before I forget, man, we just had a text from Tyler from Huntsville. He says he's pretty sure he just talked to you on the CB driving through Nashville.
No, I never turn the crazy thing. I've got one, but I never turn it on because if you want to hear stupid people, then just turn the CB on. You'll hear plenty.
Okay.
And a lot of other things you don't need to hear.
Well, he thought it was your voice, but nonetheless. By the way, Tyler from Huntsville is not one of our stupid people, just so you know.
There's a lot of them out there. Put that way.
What's on your mind right now, man?
Hey, how long do you think we're going to be before we have a military coup in this country? You know, they actually take over and run things. It's when the people running the show are just completely woken nuts.
I
crazy.
don't foresee a military coup at all. But what I do foresee is that there's going to be a question. I bet the next political season, I think we're going to see a lot of the issues of military readiness and woke in the military is going to be a mix in the presidential campaign. You watch, I guarantee you, and you're going to see any number of examples. Not the least of which is the fact that right now the Assistant Secretary of Defense for Readiness is a transgender who believes that the job is to make sure that everybody knows how to find their best selves. That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard.
Well, you talk about discrimination in the military. The only discrimination I know of is when they was sorting through after January 6th and trying to figure out who voted for Trump and kind of quash that. So maybe we need to declare conservatism a religion, and then we're all being religiously persecuted then.
Or protected. At least we can file suit then, right? You can't file suit on I'm a conservative, but. Well, I'll be honest. It's a major issue, man, and it's one of those things that's not going away. In fact, it's getting worse by the day. I had no idea where some of this is coming from. Now that I recognize, just in the last few weeks, that it's come out that we have this transgender who's the Assistant Secretary of Defense for Readiness. I see it clearly now. I can see where some of this is coming from, but it's a leadership issue.
Well, I mean, people say that liberalism is a mental illness, and I swear I begin to believe that because you have to be mentally incapacitated to think the way they do. I mean, because there's nothing that makes sense. There's nothing that's there's no rhyme or reason to what they do. It's just everything's on a feeling and whether it's right or wrong, well, that's how I feel. That's what we're going to do, And this country is, I tell you, we're on the verge of destruction. I mean, truly are, as far as being taken over and the economy collapsing, the infrastructure collapsing, everything. If we don't get a hold of this soon, that's what we're coming into. And if you're a liberal, it's not going to work out well for you because you're relying on the government and if there's no government there, I don't know who you're going to rely on.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Okay. So I don't know that I share the view that the government itself is going to collapse, but I do believe they're trying to dismantle our culture. And I see that happening on an exponential level right now, man. All right. Hey,
I see us.
go ahead. Go ahead,
Okay,
bud.
go ahead.
No, finish.
I see us collapsing like Venezuela. I truly do, because you can't be this deep in debt and just, there's no stopping of it in the future. I see no stop ahead of time, and they're just going to keep going until one day we're going to be like Wile E. Coyote chasing the Roadrunner. We're going to run off the cliff, and we're going to look down and say, there's no ground underneath me anymore, and then fall.
Well, let's hope that's nowhere in sight right now, brother. But hey, listen, we're up against the break. I got about 30, 40 seconds, so we will talk again soon, my man. Take care and be safe in the traffic.
Have a good one, Phil. Thank you.
You, buddy. So yeah, it looks like it's a double dipper day, bud. I'm just saying. Because
it is.
I got more of this.
I know you got plenty of it.
There's no way I can satisfy myself stopping now on this topic. But that's okay. In fact, I'm going to continue on. We get back from this break. We'll keep this going, fit to fight. I've got too much of my own, personal history wrapped up in this. I've got too much of my family now and prior to me wrapped up in this. And I got folks like y'all out there, like Raven from Russellville texting in. Says, at least we served when the word military had meaning. I'll never cease to be proud of that. And he thanks me for my service. And sir, Raven, I thank you for yours. And remember, do not forget, there's more of us than there are of them. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Right Side Radio, solid conservative, just plain right, covering down on some major ground across the northern half of the most beautiful state in the nation. That'd be Alabama. And I'm talking about, we go way on down south with this radio show, south of Birmingham, up north of Huntsville, Tuscaloosa, back to Gadsden, parts of Georgia, Tennessee, and Mississippi, just for good measure. I got to tell you, so one of our advertisers is the ELM Foundation, ELM. Expect Little Miracles is what it stands for. ELM, the ELM Foundation. I love what they do, man. They get out there and they work in people's lives, and they're changing lives. They are literally helping people get off the streets, find their means to become productive in society again, to find self-worth in what they're doing, and they walk them through it. They're not like a government program throwing money at it. No, the ELM Foundation invests time in people, and they provide accountability, they provide milestones, they provide means and opportunities, and they're doing it right now as a 501c3. By the way, they're one of this. It's very cool. They got a situation where if you were to ever donate to them and the things that they do, which I encourage, you need to know that every dollar you contribute goes to their programs, because they have one benefactor who has underwritten every administrative aspect of what they're doing. So their staff's all paid for, their office is paid for, the ELM Foundation. Check them out. Their website is ELMHSV, as in Elm Huntsville, ELMHSV.org. And I think you'll like what you see. All right, I got a caller on the line. I'll do that real quick before I start back in. Jerry from Hartselle. Hey, Jerry, how you doing?
Actually, it's Gary, but that's okay.
I'm sorry, Gary. How are you?
That's okay. What Biden is doing to the military, I mean, and Obama before him, it's just terrible. I mean, it's even worse when I went in 74 under Carter. I mean, you know, I graduated high school and went in, and it was bad then. It's even worse now.
Yeah,
and
my dad actually called those years the Hollow Army.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. I mean, it was terrible, and yeah, I went through MP school down in Anniston, and that was in '78. And if anybody ever told me I was ever going to live in Alabama, I would have told them they were nuts. And here I've been here for too long. But one other thing, Phil.
Yeah.
Kindergarten should be mandatory, because obviously you didn't go to kindergarten, because if you would have learned not to jump out of a perfectly good airplane.
Wow. Zing. All right.
And everything I've learned, everything I've needed through life, I learned in kindergarten. I've learned other stuff, but I learned the basics. I learned what I needed in kindergarten.
Yeah. Well, Gary, thanks for your call. Thanks for your service too, man. Appreciate you very much. Glad you're in the audience. All right. Take care.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
See ya. Wow. Russ from Athens has texted in and says, when I was in uniform in the 80s, 90s, and early 2000s, he says, I was pissed every time we spent a down day doing anti-discrimination or similar training. Said, I always thought if the most diverse and most team-oriented organization in the world is doing this crap over and over again, the real world must really be screwed up. I'm not arguing. I mean, those mandatory training, by the way, I've got an article here that points out that in the year 2021, when the Biden administration came on board and they appointed Secretary Austin, and they were determined to root out systemic racism in the ranks, and they literally spent 4.2 million man hours stopping everybody cold in their tracks and telling them how bad it is to be a racist, because nobody understood that till they got there. Nobody realized. I mean, it's bad for me to be a racist in the foxhole next to my brother who wears the same uniform I do, but he has a different skin color. It's bad. I am so glad you stopped my training to tell me that. Wow. Okay. So I just feel like I got to spend a minute more on this article. So let me make sure y'all understand this Politico article as if they don't even realize what they're saying. It's on our resources on the website, by the way. You can go there and find this article. It's under Politico. It was dated April 9th. The headline is DOD's highest-ranking trans official says ostracizing anybody will hurt military readiness. What basic training did this person go to? Does anybody remember the days of like when Gunny would come in and kick the trash can down the center aisle of the barracks and tell you things about your heritage you did not know before you got there? I mean, what? Who believes for a second that the years of fighting and winning wars were actually not as well fought because we had people that weren't treated kindly and able to find their true selves. No, they were told to shape up or ship out. They were told in no uncertain terms, you will follow the line. You will do as I say. You will turn to the left, turn to the right. You will march in step. Because the uniformity and the discipline and the good order of the military environment requires it. Now, I will say this, the military in the United States does allow free thinking. It does. You cannot, in most militaries, expect free thinking. The Russians don't get it. They provide orders, and you are nothing but chattel to them at that point. In the U.S. military, I've always heard, and I believe it is my experience, is that you provide the mission, but you have to provide the why with the mission because U.S. folks are more prone to free thinking. But with the good order and discipline and the ability to follow those orders and the ability then to explain those orders through a good operations order or a FRAGO or whatever the case may be, you have provided now the information they need, they'll go and do. But now we are in a world where the Assistant Secretary of Defense for Readiness is a transgender who believes that it's important. That's the Assistant Secretary of Defense for Readiness for all U.S. military. The more I say it, the more it's just getting all over me. And by the way, Skelly, that's Sean Skelly is the name. Skelly, who believes that it's very important that in the military that you be able to find your best self. Skelly's appointment was welcomed as a powerful signal of support by transgender troops now serving openly. Yeah, all of them. That would be like 0.0001% of the military, I feel certain. But I think it's also important to point out that while they're pushing back against the idea that Republican lawmakers want to turn back the policy of transgenders in the military, that Skelly herself is a clear indication. Herself, his self. What is it? It's a dude thinking he's a chick. All right, his self. Skelly.
Yes.
Skelly talks about in this article openly that in the final days of his military service, when he began to realize that he was not in the right body, I guess, at 40 years old apparently, a Navy lieutenant commander, a pilot, was asked to remain in for 6 more months because they were in some readiness posture at the time, agreed to do so, but had to hire a counselor to help him get through those months and a number more before he could finally leave service. And then even says, and after working through thoughts of self-harm with his counselor, he transitioned in 2010. Are you hearing this? The person who is in charge of readiness for the DOD is someone who had to spend time in counseling, dealing with thoughts of self-harm because of a gender dysphoria, and now believes his job is to help the troops be able to find their best self. You'll find your best self when you train them how to be a warrior because they'll be proud of what they do. Pentagon Chief Lloyd Austin, just about 3 weeks ago, was bristling, it says, as Republicans hit the woke military. New York Post article, March 28th. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin became visibly frustrated as Republicans on the Senate Armed Services Committee, which I'm about to quote you from our own Tommy Tuberville again, criticized him for his leftist Pentagon policies and programs, including the 2021 stand down to address extremism in the ranks. Senator Tommy Tuberville, quote, as one of your first acts, Mr. Secretary, you put our military, every single member, active duty and reserve, to a mandatory training to root out extremists, said Tommy Tuberville during a hearing on the Defense Department's proposed budget. That sent a message. That sent a message that our military is filled with extremists. Tuberville went on to say, our military is one of the most diverse organizations in the world. It is full of patriots. But then defending the stand down, Secretary Austin said, we've always had regulations against extremist behavior. That's right, we have. Your first sergeant's not going to sit there very long if you're a racist in the ranks, right? Not going to happen. Your company commander is not going to sit idly by and not write you up if you chose to diss on somebody during a live fire exercise. It's not going to happen. The hearing grew tense, it says, when Senator Eric Schmidt accused Austin of wasting more than 5 million military man-hours on the training, to which Austin took issue and said, that's not accurate, Senator. It was 4.2 million. Well, that makes it better. I feel gooder now. Undeterred, Schmidt said that whether it's 5.4 or 4.2 million man hours, the military can't get that time back. This all went on, and then I'll be honest with you, it's playing out. That was just 3 weeks ago. I've got a piece right here from defense.gov. This is an official press release from the Defense News Service. Vice Chiefs talk recruiting shortfalls and readiness issues. The Army, Navy, and Air Force will not make enlistment goals this year. That's out last Thursday. The Army, Navy, and Air Force will not make enlistment goals this year, officials told the House Armed Services Subcommittee on Readiness. The Marine Corps and Space Force expect to make their goals. Space Force has some other questions. The Army expects to recruit 55,000 new soldiers, 10,000 short of their goal. By the way, that's a reduced goal, if I'm not mistaken, from what it was the year before. They reduced expectations to try and get themselves back in line, and they did not get there. The Navy expects to be 6,000 short. The Air Force expects to be about 10,000 short. The General Randy A. George, the Army's Vice Chief of Staff, and Admiral Lisa Franchetti were the ones presenting. George said that his service component is challenged by the fact that a small number of Americans, 23%, are qualified to serve. He said fewer still we're finding are interested in serving, and that's something we're working very hard to change. And he pointed out, and I agree with this, he says there is a perception right now the military is not a great idea for you. He said in reality it's a life accelerator. He was actually somebody who's risen through the ranks from a private to a general. It's been a huge piece of his life, and I get it. I agree with that. It is a life accelerator. It's a skills enhancer. It's a resume builder. It's a morale booster. It's a self-esteem generator. But he says, and so here we are. Think back. A moment ago, I had the fact that the Assistant Secretary for Readiness is a transgender, believing that the best thing we could do is help people find their best selves. General George goes on to report, personnel is the most important aspect of readiness, but there is much more. The Army, George said, must focus on warfighting and training for battle in which all domains are contested. The service must support combatant commands with ready formations. And right now, we have 137,000 soldiers in over 140 countries. And that's right. And that's true. And every bit of it is necessary. But then I have the story from Fox. Retired Navy commander sounds the alarm on the U.S. military's readiness, saying we can't fight a sustained war. Retired Navy Commander Kirk Lippold commented on the Biden administration's projection of strength after China's latest military exercise near Taiwan, and went on to say, Lippold, who used to command the USS Cole, said on Fox and Friends Monday he believes China's responding. And he said, I wouldn't be surprised if Russia, China, and Iran are working in concert. And he went on to praise the U.S. for showing resolve by sending Navy warships over there. But he says it's clear, his words, we couldn't even fight one war today because we don't have the depth. We don't have the ability to fight a sustained conflict. We can do the quick hit, hard hit, get in, out, and stop. But sustaining the effort, that's what's concerning to the American people and our allies. Can we do this? And can we do it on a two-front war? Well, I have my doubts, my concerns. I love the U.S. military. I'm not down on it one bit. I have family members still in right now. I was proud to have served. I was proud my family served. I would do it all again. But I'll tell you right now, I am watching with dismay what liberals are doing to the strongest, most dynamic fighting force in the history of the world. The very idea that a person who was having to seek a counselor to help them through their last few months just to stay in the service for a little bit longer, and then came out and said, I'm actually a woman, and now that person is the Assistant Secretary for Readiness. Is it any wonder that we're not going to meet our recruiting goals for a second or third year in a row? Fit to fight? Depends on who you're talking to. All right, going to the last break of the day. We'll come right back and wrap this thing up. This show went so fast. How's that happen?
Lightning.
You moved the clock again.
I
didn't
did.
You? Okay. All right. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Right Side Radio, solid conservative, just plain right, saving the world one soundbite at a time. All right, so I got a question for you, Boomer. And so,
Yeah.
all right, I come from a military background. You come from a athletics background.
Right.
All right, let me ask you this.
Okay.
Has there ever been a time when a coach yelled at you?
I don't know of a day that I was on the field that the coach did not yell at me.
Did the coach ever pretty much like put you in your place or make you take a lap or call you a name, for God's sake?
I think I got in the habit of just when he started talking to me, I just started running. I mean, I think that's kind of how it went, But with that running or discipline,
yeah,
it made me who I am today and who I became as a player.
Yeah. Okay.
And guess what? It didn't hurt my feelings. It made me better.
In fact, if anything, it made you tougher, right?
Exactly.
That's just
Thick skin. Come on.
I look at this and I think back to, there were days when the drill sergeants or the ranger instructors or the black hats at airborne school, when they would say, and sometimes, by the way, sometimes the insults were so hilarious that you weren't allowed to laugh.
Oh,
when
so what would happen? Like if someone was like, if they weren't talking to you and there was someone in the, one of your peers just over there and he just laughs, what would happen?
Oh, who laughed? Who was it? You. Get down. You. Get in the front, lean and rest, do push-ups till I get tired. That's the kind of thing that would happen. There was stuff like, they would be talking and they'd be telling you, let me understand that all of you think that you are BMWs. You are not. You are Volkswagens. I am a Mercedes. Sergeant so-and-so is a BMW. We will walk down the center aisle because that is the Autobahn made for us. You, on the other hand, will drive the back alleys. And he tells us, we got to walk. And you're standing there trying not to laugh. But you know what, though? It just made us stronger.
Right.
And this whole idea of oversensitizing the U.S. military is just, for the love of God.
Right.
I just look at it and think, they'll be told to take a lap, and they'll want to know, why have I got to take a lap, Sergeant? Do some push-ups.
They were saying, better ourselves. No, I want an army that's be all you can be, not better ourselves.
Yeah, I know. And because we all know that what you and I just described made us better selves, but we didn't have to find ourselves to be better.
Exactly.
That's where we're at. This whole thing. I could continue putting words to it for hours, but it just drives me crazy.
Right.
All right, hey, great show. Hey, listen, I got to tell you guys before we walk out the door. So if you want to advertise, if you hear this show and you're thinking, man, I agree, everything they just said. If you want to advertise your business on Rightside Radio, so Rightside is indeed a separate business, all right? We are not owned by the stations. In fact, we provide content to the stations that we're on, and we therefore have the ability to sell advertising on our show. And that's also how we sustain operations. So if you want to advertise your business with Rightside Radio, then please, by all means, get in touch with us. Go to rightsideradio.org, go to the advertising and contact tab, just send us a message. We will respond to it immediately, and our sales staff will be in touch. All right, that's how you can get on board with the Rightside team. That's how we sustain who we are as a business and as a group with a message. And yes, indeed, there are more of us than there are them. Every freaking day, just so you know, there are more of us than there are of them. So take heart. We're going to maintain this solid conservative and just plain right mantra, and we're going to provide a means by which you can hear the words that you know you've been feeling, but you couldn't quite find them. That's what we're going to do every day. All right, you guys. Y'all have an amazing night. Boomer and I back here tomorrow, too. We will see you then.